Tonight my guest is Steven Rothman, New Jersey's recently elected congressman from the 9th District. Steve, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Tom. Great to be here.
Let's first of all, let's warn the audience out there to have a pencil and paper ready. There's going to be some important telephone numbers and locations shown throughout the program. Let's get right to the nub of your new position, Steve. What is it like being a congressman?
Well, first, it's a great privilege, and it may sound corny, but it's true. To think that I have the privilege of representing almost 600,000 people in the national legislature really puts everything in perspective for me and lets me know on a daily basis the kind of responsibility I have to these people. And it's a great responsibility, and I'm just thrilled to have the job, and I'm working very hard.
Okay. We all know that we hear about Congress and the things that Congress does. Exactly how does this committee system work?
Well, the Congress has various committees on the budget, on the environment, on judiciary, on resources, on the military, all kinds of committees. And this way they divide up the work, the groundwork for the development of bills and legislation, where these separate specific matters can be studied and debated, and then bills crafted. And once they're crafted in the committees by the two parties who sit on each committee, then they're released eventually to the floor of the House of Representatives, where the bills get voted on. The one little kicker is that the party in control of the Congress, and nowadays it's the Republican Party, has the right to decide which bill will get to the floor for a vote. So, for example, on a subject of equal interest to both parties, the Democratic version will not be permitted to go to the floor. The Republicans will only allow the Republican version. So it's a little disheartening, but on occasion, especially in the committee system, we can change that. We can get some of the Republicans to change some aspects of their bills. But that's really why the control of Congress is important, given the two different philosophies of the parties on so many issues.
That's where the horse trading, if you will, takes place?
It's not just the horse trading, but I must tell you, there are some good people in both parties for whom a good argument on the merits of the argument, what's the right thing to do, can on some occasions carry some weight and will cause the other party in control of Congress to change their bill slightly. It doesn't happen often enough. Too much these days, the other party is locked into this ideological vision of what should happen and not really be mindful of what real people are going through and suffering with.
What committees are you involved in?
I'm on the two committees, the Judiciary Committee, and I'm on the Subcommittee on Crime, and I'm on the International Relations Committee, the Subcommittee on International Trade and Economic Policy. Well,
can we go through what these committees are? And I know the subcommittee is kind of where the expertise is developed, and I guess it moves up the line. Is that the idea?
Yeah, you're right. For example, on the Judiciary Committee, we've had some very important, very interesting debates and produced a number of bills which have already been voted on the floor. We debated the Balanced Budget Amendment, we debated term limits, we debated the Juvenile Justice Bill, the Comprehensive Juvenile Justice Bill, the new patent law that just was passed the other day, which will have a big impact on inventions and inventors throughout the country and the world. On the International Relations Committee, we've already met with President Mubarak of Egypt, Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, Yasser Arafat of the Palestinian Authority, and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. So we have a wide range. Literally the whole world is on the table before us, and we get involved in human rights issues and strategic military concerns. It's a fascinating committee. And plus trade, how we can get our products sold around the world.
Well, I think one of the important things is when you get to those subcommittees, how you work with staff and develop expertise. Going back to colonial times, you had men coming from common men coming from different parts of the country and setting up a country. I guess it's really the same type of thing. You've come here from the Bergen County area, if you will, gone to Washington like Mr. Jones goes to Washington, so to speak. Give us an idea how that subcommittee and the expertise is handled.
Well, there have been a lot of changes. First of all, we have men and women now in Congress. But you're right.
I stand corrected.
Well, no, in the old days, in colonial days, it was just property-holding men.
Right.
Now we have men and women, terrific people, as diverse as our nation is, a wonderful group of people for the very most part. I don't come to the job of a member of Congress as a total rookie. I was the mayor of the city of Englewood, a very diverse and great city in Bergen County. I was the judge of Bergen County Surrogates Court, elected countywide in Bergen County, and I was a practicing attorney for 13 years in my own practice. So I've done a number of things, worked with many, many different kinds of people and faced many, many challenges. And I'm a father of 2 young kids, so I come to the Congress with some real-life experiences as a person and also as an elected official. And while things are different now being in a legislature, I was never in a legislature, I was always either the mayor or a judge, people are the same. In order to reach some people, you need to persuade them on the merits and what's right and what's good for the country. Other people are not that interested in that. They want to know what politically is best for them, and you have to persuade them that to do the right thing will also help them politically. It's a challenge, but it's one that is thrilling, that I very much enjoy, because it gives me the opportunity to help people, to improve the quality of life for the people of the district and make an impact. And that's a very, very satisfying feeling for me.
I hope the other thing that they also consider is common sense, and that you seem to exude that in your discussions here. I think we'll be back now in a few moments. Thank you. Now we've discussed the committee system, and we'll address that a little bit later on the more detail. But exactly when you were elected, you ran on stopping crime, aiding transportation, helping education, things of that nature. But you're not on those committees. How do you go about moving forward your own agenda, if you will?
Well, you get placed on committees. You don't get the ones that you pick, usually, unless you've been in Congress for a while. As a freshman, they put you on the committees. I think I got 2 good ones, but I'm very much interested in education and transportation and crime. And I said when I campaigned that education would be my #1 priority when I got elected.
Right.
And literally, on the first day of Congress, I co-sponsored, was the original co-sponsor of a bill concerning education, making college more affordable for parents and young people. It was an IRA for college tuition. An IRA which would be tax deductible, an account for college, tax deductible, the contributions you put into it, and as the money in that account grows, it would be practically tax-free, the growth on those monies saved for college, if they're ultimately used for college. And I followed up on that. I will be introducing another bill to expand the amount of Pell Grants. The President wants to take it to $3,000. I'd like to take it to $3,500. And I've also been very supportive, though, of the President's the other elements of the President's economic package, which he's come out with in his budget, which are the $1,500 HOPE scholarships, the tax credits, the tax deduction of $10,000 a year used for college tuition, the low-interest loans to municipalities and other districts, school districts, so they can rebuild their crumbling schools. Education is my #1 priority. We live in such a competitive global economy that everyone agrees, on the right side of the political spectrum and on the left side of the political spectrum, the way we will succeed as a nation in the global economy is to have the best trained best educated workforce and young people. So that to me is my #1 priority. And what I did was introduce legislation even though I'm not on the education committee. And then to go around the district as I've done and had parent summits in North Bergen and in Kearney and throughout the district. And I had a seminar at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Teaneck for parents and young people concerned about how to finance a college education. And I brought together experts there to give information that most of those folks and I didn't have about how to get the right grants and apply for the right scholarships. So there are things that you can do as a member of Congress about an issue that you care about, even if you're not on that committee.
Pell Grants. For those who are uninitiated, I've had 5 children. I know what they are. Go ahead. Give us a little definition of them.
Well, a Pell Grant is a grant that's given to young people who, on the basis of need, if they're qualified to get to college, but their parents have no money, they have no money, these qualified young people are the kind of young people we want to give a hand to so that they can fulfill their dream and be contributing members of society as educated young people ready to join a competitive workforce in a competitive global economy. So it has made sense for years. Unfortunately, the amount of the Pell Grant that the federal government made available did not keep up with inflation. The amount never rose. So President Clinton has recommended that it rise to $3,000, and I'm going to be proposing in a new bill that it rise to $3,500. I've also put forth, as I said on my first day in Congress, a bill to help working and middle-class families who have the ability to save money for their kids' college tuition, but who need a break. And this would be the IRA accounts for college tuition, so that the savings would be tax deductible, whatever you put into it would be tax deductible, and then the earnings on it would be tax-free.
Free, yeah, that's the important part. I just want to go back to Pell for a moment. It's not an acronym. Pell was a U.S. Senator, as I recall, back in the 60s. Is he still in I didn't realize he was. All right, let's go on to some of the other hot buttons in your recent campaign. Crime, and that's always on the front burner here in the metropolitan area for sure. Go ahead, please give me your views on it.
Well, I was appointed to the Judiciary Committee, and then when I found out that I was on the Judiciary Committee, I fought to get on the Crime Subcommittee. We're going to be, we were debating yesterday, or just this past week, a great many of initiatives concerning juvenile crime. That is the most serious aspect of the crime problem. As you know, overall crime statistics have gone down, but juvenile crime has risen. So I've had a number of, I put together a crime task force of educators, police officers, probation officers, and other human services folks to find out what is it we can do, and educators, to intervene in young people's lives, to steer them away from a life of crime. And the other aspect of my interest in juvenile crime is on the punishment side, to make sure that young people who are involved in violent crime, that they be punished according to the crime, so that if they're 15 or 16 and they commit a heinous murder or rape or aggravated assault or armed robbery, that they get punished according to the adult standards. Unfortunately, juvenile crime is going up and constitutes a larger portion of the crime picture. The prospects are not bleak if we can intervene, and there have been various programs around the country, even, for example, in Boston, Massachusetts. There used to be a tremendous number of handgun deaths for young people. They haven't had a handgun death in over a year. Why? Because of specific programs they've taken involving the probation officers riding, for example, in shotgun, as the shotgun seat in the shotgun seat of the police car, so that when they see a young person walking down the street who's on probation, who shouldn't be out late at night or in the company of a known criminal, they can apprehend them. Various techniques have been successful around the country, but my focus again is the two-pronged approach. Number one, it's the moral thing to do and the cost-effective thing to do. To intervene when you know that young people, whether it's in elementary, middle school, or high school, are starting to hang out with the wrong crowd or going in the wrong direction. Most of the crime, more than 50% of the crime committed by young people, occurs between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. If we can provide supervised afternoon programs for these young people, these latchkey kids for the most part, we will be making a big impact on the crime statistics as well as saving these young people's lives. It will be cost effective, every expert agrees, and it will be morally the right thing to do to save these young people from a life of crime. That, as well as the punishment side, is really my focus.
I'll be very honest with you. I'm shocked that you're a law and order man, a Democrat from Bergen County. But that's going to bring us into our next segment, which I want to discuss, the Democratic coalition. Because you really came out, and I think it's your constituents obviously are behind you on this, because crime is a very, very important issue. But it's just surprising that what would probably be considered a liberal area, that you have a law and order congressman. And congratulations on your stance, by the way. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you. Now, the third area of concern during your recent election was transportation. And what can you do about that from your viewpoint?
Well, I can weigh in on the overall funding and then fight for specific problems. Let me tell you about the overall funding. There used to be this program called ICE-T, Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act, which doled out the money for transportation, for rail, for roads, for the United States. That formula is coming up for renewal, and the regions of the country are fighting over who should get the bigger piece of the pie. And we in the Northeast are fighting for our share because that's where our need is the greatest. Transportation infrastructure, open up our highways, put in new rail systems, rebuild our rail lines so that we can move our people, move our products efficiently, comfortably, and improve the quality of our life. I've been fighting for a couple of specific projects. The expansion of Route 4 and 17 at that intersection, which has been a disaster for so long. Routes 4 and 17, which intersection was built for 12,000 cars, which now handles almost 250,000, 250,000 cars a day. I've also been fighting for the Secaucus transfer station, where there will be a rail hub where when you get to it, you can travel within the state, down to the shore, and out to Manhattan. But I've got a pet project that I've been working on, a 10-mile light rail program from Saddlebrook to Edgewater, a 10-mile light rail project from Saddlebrook to Edgewater, which will then allow people to go across Bergen County down to the waterfront, to take it down through the Bergen light rail system down to Hoboken, to go to Lower Manhattan, Upper Manhattan, or to catch a transfer at the Secaucus transfer station and go to the shore. By having this 10-mile light rail, we will be able to free up the congestion on roads like Routes 4 and Route 80. We'll also be able to provide thoughtful development of the Meadowlands, not development filled with cars, but thoughtful mass transit light rail. Because what I want to do is redevelop the older suburbs and our cities and leave our open space, improve our open space, clean it up, redevelop our older suburbs and our cities. One way to do that is to make our transportation system more efficient, more sensible, give people a good reason to take a train, make it convenient and comfortable and inexpensive. I went down and testified before Congress on my 10-mile light rail from Saddlebrook to Edgewater, $230 million project. Brought experts from Bergen County and around the country. I even drove down to Trenton so I could take the train up with the Secretary of Transportation, Rodney Slater, and spent an hour on the train with him going over the plans for the light rail, planting the seeds for this new rail project, which in 5 or 10 years may be a reality. Those are the kinds of things that I feel passionate about, improving the quality of life for the people in our region, allowing people to come to work in our counties, and allowing people to live here and enjoy here.
That's not only a light rail project. That's a regentrification of those cities that you're talking about, as I see it. And I think that's really what they've done in Europe. you've called to any of the major metropolitan areas in Europe, and they're not going out, driving out to the suburbs further and exurbs or whatever it is. They're fixing up the inner cities, if you will, and utilizing them. And that's what you seem to be, sound like you're planning. That's a great idea.
I don't want to force anybody to live anywhere. Yeah. But what I want to do is make people's commutes less unpredictable. I want to make it safer and cheaper. I also introduced just this last 2 weeks ago a brownfields bill in the House of Representatives. Senator Lautenberg has it in the Senate, I have it in the House. The brownfields bill would clean up polluted properties in our district and in our state and across the nation. Allow low-cost loans and grants to states and municipalities to clean up contaminated lots, mostly in our older suburbs and in our cities, so that we can redevelop those abandoned lots that developers are afraid of going near because of the pollution, and thereby free up the pressure on our precious little open space that's left, to keep them open, to bring jobs and new development to our older suburbs and our cities, and then to have a transportation network that gets us to and from and around our district that's predictable, that's clean, and that's safe. Improving the quality of life, improving the prospects for economic opportunity and economic prosperity, that's my job. And that's very satisfying.
We'll be back in a moment with that. All right, we're going to finish up with the new Democratic coalition. Give me your view of that. And you're a member, as I understand it.
Yes, that's one of the first groups I joined when I got to Congress, the new Democratic coalition. Basically, there are a number of Democrats in Congress from around the country who decided that the traditional Democratic leadership was not really addressing all of our concerns. We didn't want to be far to the right wing. But we wanted a more centrist, moderate, common-sense approach to problems. And it's a good group from all over the country, and we're hoping to make a difference in negotiations, being sort of the intermediary between the president, the Democratic president, and the Republican-controlled Congress, to have a moderate group of Democrats and a moderate group of Republicans and another organization to work with to come to solutions that move the country forward, but in a very common-sense, moderate, centrist way.
No more log jams.
Well, I'm not saying that there won't be log jams, but because there's so many different interests. But, you know, we live in complicated times. We often become disheartened about the conflicting interests in Congress and people from all over the country fighting for their share of the pie. But as I tell people not to lose heart, despite our nearly impossible system of government, we are the most successful, free, prosperous country in the history of the planet, and if we continue in this direction and work hard with common sense, with the input from our people, we'll continue in that way for years to come, God willing.
Thank you very much, Steve. Before we go, I just wanted to remember a staunch supporter of yours, Joe Campbell from Kearney.
Yes.
Who passed away recently, and he was an old friend of mine. Again, nice meeting you, and thanks again. Be back soon, right?
Thank you, Tom. I will.